As I'm preparing for the next chapter on my football journey, I'm going to go over a funny story that happened on the last football trial that I went on in the summer of 2025. So it was a fun moment. Obviously, I've talked a little bit about this trial and how fun it was and how many great memories I made on this trial. And obviously now I have this new one coming up next week, which I'm going to keep training for and getting ready for this week. But I just thought of the story, and I've thought of the story that happened on the last one. So I think it'd be a good thing to share with you and to have a few laughs about the funny things that happened. So I'm gonna share it, and I'm gonna talk about what happened. So basically, here is the story. It was a very funny thing. Well, actually, it started off not so funny, but then it became something that became a bit of a meme. So it started off not so funny. We were, first week into the trial for all of us, right? Remember that trial? There was like 30 of us. We were in like a dorm room setting. It was like, it felt really like it was like a college, university dorm room type of thing where, we were all just kind of hanging around, mingling about, shared bathrooms, like mingling in each other's rooms and all that stuff. So first week was great. And then on the weekend, they had organized like a fun event for us to go to where we were doing like river jumping and stuff. It was super fun. It was actually pretty enjoyable, even if no one actually wanted to go because everyone was in bed super late the night before and we had to wake up ridiculously early on the day of. But one guy actually didn't go because he was sick. Like he woke up and he felt terrible and he literally like actually didn't go. It wasn't because like a few people tried to make the excuse that they were sick, but they like forced them to come anyway because of course like everyone was tired, no one wanted to get up. So people like pretended like they were sick, but they were forced to come. But this guy actually stayed back because he was actually sick. So he was sick, and then afterward, when we already like we had already got there, there were a few people that couldn't go in because they didn't bring the right clothes, or they didn't bring something. They didn't bring shoes. They didn't bring shoes. They brought like slides and stuff, but you needed shoes to do the jumping because obviously you're gonna lose them if you jump in with slides. We were talking like we're talking like it was like a 20-foot jump that you would do into the river, and then a few other fun things. You would get cooked if you had slides. So they couldn't go. But then when we finished the event, we got back, we heard that another guy had actually fainted on the bus and had to get taken to the hospital. So and then they said that he, like because of the heat and also because he was also sick. And then we found out that both of the people, the person that didn't come and the guy that fainted on the bus, they both had COVID, which is like everyone's just like, whoa, what in 2025? COVID in 2025? What are we doing? Right? We all paid for the opportunity to be here, and now there's gonna be a COVID outbreak. So basically, we went into like quarantine. They brought out the hand sanitizer, they brought out the masks, they did everything, and they went into every single person's room and tested them. And there were like I think was there was like out of 30 of us, I think 10 of us tested positive. So we literally had the trial completely shut down for a few days. We would have played like one or two more games, but we didn't because like that Monday and Tuesday we completely shut it down due to the fact that people had COVID. And then we had to do like our training sessions where like the people that didn't have COVID did the training session, and the people that had COVID like had to train separately with masks on outside in 30-degree heat in Spain. Actually, more than that, probably 40-degree heat in the peak summer of Spain. So for them, it sucked. I got super lucky that I did not, I did not test positive when they came around with the testing, and like that's maybe a foreshadowing as to what happened later. But basically, they were telling us, oh, no, you're not allowed to, people that don't have COVID are not allowed to be with the people that do have COVID. You have to separate and isolate and all that, you know, very reminiscent of the quarantine 2020 type of time. And we're doing this in 2025. It's like, wow, that's crazy. Like, some people actually were feeling sick, but a lot of people that tested positive didn't feel any symptoms, didn't feel sick at all. So, inevitably, we continue to hang out, right? We continue to just mingle around with the people that were sick. And, I was this bold, brave, brash guy. And I was like, I'm going to shake everyone's hands. I'm going to dap every single person that has COVID up. I'm going to dap them all up. So that was what I decided to do. I made sure to shake every single person's hand, every single person that had COVID, because I was like, oh, I'm not gonna get it. I'm just gonna, be cocky here, and that's what I decided to do. Hindsight, not a good idea, but it was funny. It was super funny. I didn't actually tell anyone. Like, I don't think anyone really knew, but then as a result of that, near the end of the trial, I had a bit of a sickness going into one of the last games, and I had to play fullback with like a very sore throat, and I was like coughing up my lungs and stuff. So that was painful. That sucked, and that was a result of me being sick. So I probably did end up getting it inevitably. So I had like a sore throat, and I was coughing a lot. So not only did I have to play fullback, which is a very, taxing position, it's very hard on you. You're going up and down the line all the time. You have to, you need a lot of energy to do it. I was doing it ridiculously sick while coughing out my lungs. So, I have a little bit more of a respect for people who play fullback because it's not exactly the easiest thing. Much makes it much harder on myself the fact that I was actually sick. So I actually ended up not playing bad, but I had to really, really like hone it in and push through the feelings of of feeling like absolute crap because of my own mistake of deciding to shake everyone's hand. Because I'm like, I'm not gonna get it, dude. I got a strong immune system, and to be fair, I was never actually that sick, and I was able to hide it. I think I didn't really tell anyone about it because it wasn't actually that bad, but on the field it was really taxing. So clearly that was not a good decision on my part. But yeah, so basically we had the COVID outbreak in the middle of our trial. And it was funny, ironic, but also a little bit bad because obviously we had to miss a few days, right? We had to miss a few days of important training sessions and stuff like that. And like the coaches were like getting mad at us for playing so bad, but it's like in the training sessions and not being able to pass a ball, not me, but other people, of course. And like we were saying, well, dude, obviously, like just look at what's happening. Like half of us weren't even in the mental state. Half of us were probably half sick anyway. Like me included, we were probably half sick anyway. And others were just not in the right mental frame of mind to play because of all the commotion that was happening. So then we had a few bad training sessions. They would yell at us, and then we'd kind of be like, dude, like we're getting cooked out here. So COVID in 2025, it's still a thing, and the outbreak was real, and it really did feel reminiscent of 2020 again, like masks. I didn't wear a mask because I didn't want to, but masks were, a lot of people wore masks. There was hand sanitizer. There was, like a guy actually taught me a very cool trick. This is probably like not very good for you, but it's good. If your nose is clogged, you put hand sanitizer and you smell the hand sanitizer, and it will basically clear all your sinuses. Most likely because the hand sanitizer is strong, so it's going to kill everything in your nose, which probably isn't the best, but it's still better so that you can actually, clearly breathe in through your nose, which is what you need to do. If everyone else around you is sick, you need your nose because if you're breathing in through your mouth, you're only increasing the chance that you catch the COVID that everyone else has. And then people were moved to different rooms and stuff. Like the original guy that had it and the guy that fainted on the bus had to be put like on the whole other side of the building. And on occasion we would still like they would still walk over and we like they would still walk over to our side and then we would still talk and we'd still chill and we'd still have fun. So we wouldn't learn our lesson basically, and we would kind of just keep it going as if nothing happened. So I look back on this and it was really funny. And then it became like a big meme, right? Like our WhatsApp group chat got named to COVID Summer Trial 2025 because even like the agents and the coaches and stuff like were joining in and kind of laughing a little bit about at the situation, which is good. It's good to have a bit of a laugh instead of looking at it from such a serious angle. But it helped that we were already great friends, that there were already a lot of great relationships that we had made, and we had already bonded a lot. This kind of as like a thing, as an experience that we all shared, it probably brought us as a group even closer together, and it honestly made the trial probably a little bit better because it helped us bond even more as people, as friends, as teammates. And although it was a little bit of a thing that derailed us a bit, and you can look at it from a funny perspective, it was also very good and fun way to continue bonding, right? And I guess a unique way, if you will. So no one anticipated that this would happen, right? The first week it was like a completely normal week. We'd still, I'd still met a lot of great people. We still had a lot of great conversations, but it was really in that second week after the COVID or during the COVID that we bonded even more. Like, oh yeah, I almost forgot. We literally had a moment where, think about like a tiny dorm room, right? It's like you have the door and then it's like a tiny little space and then you have two beds because they were shared rooms. And then a couple of closets. That's it. That's the room. It's a tiny room. We had like one night where like at like 10 p.m. before we were supposed to go to sleep, there was like literally 20 of us in one room. And we were like talking about a bunch of different things. And that didn't help with the COVID. This is during the COVID outbreak. Like half of them had COVID, half of us didn't have COVID. And we were all just like chilling, pretending like it didn't happen. 20 of us in one of these tiny little dorm rooms at the same time. That definitely didn't help containing that outbreak either. But it just made the whole thing so much more fun. So really, although it was a crazy experience and although it was something you would have never thought would have happened in 2025, like the guy that fainted on the bus was okay. He was able to get back into it. No problem. No problem. He went back, he trained, and he actually got an offer with another team, which is good for him. And the guy that was also originally sick, he got better pretty quickly as well. So then we were able to, after a few days of just limbo, we were finally able to clear everyone. They tested everyone who had COVID again, and I think there was only like one or two that still had it. So we were pretty much able to bring the team back together and continue to train in the way that we were, play a few more games, and end the trial on a positive note. So it didn't actually affect the overall aspect of it, but there were, it took away a couple of days where we could have had a few more games, a few more minutes of playing time type of thing. But still, the COVID tryout is how we call it. This was my last football trial that I was on. Hopefully this one isn't as crazy as the one that happened in the summer. It was still one of the greatest experiences of my life, and this fun, ironic, weird little twist that happened with the COVID outbreak, I think, in my opinion, only made it just a lot more crazy and a lot more fun and a lot more. It brought all of us as a group even closer together. So it's a beautiful thing. Like, I really do think that God was there and God made this happen to teach us a bunch of lessons as individuals, because in that group there were a lot of people that had great faith. And that's what I truly think. I think this type of experience, or even just the full trial in general, was just lessons, life lessons, and humblings and amazing memories. And I think it was kind of brought together by a godly thing. I don't think it was anything else. The fact that we were, all these people, these guys from many different countries had just happened to come together at this exact time to have a great time. Even if we didn't make it and only a few people were chosen, it was still an absolutely amazing experience. And although we had the COVID and although it was this kind of funny little ironic thing, it still was an amazing memory. It was an amazing trial. And I'm hoping this trial has a different structure to it, but I'm hoping that this one will be, hopefully, without the COVID part of it, obviously, I'm hoping that this one will be kind of similar to, in terms of like the experience that I have to what happened in the summer of last year. And then, we were being super funny. Like, we were trying to figure out where the COVID came from. Like, people went into the city, people were like partying a little bit, and that became a little bit of a problem. People were like staying out super late and then like having to sneak back into the residence by like climbing over a gate, which is crazy that these guys actually went and did that when they had to, wake up at 6 a.m. the next morning to go train. And the coaches obviously got mad at us for that, inevitably, because they caught some people that were sneaking out. But perhaps perhaps that started because of that. People were like partying, people were going into the city, people were like, taking taxis and Ubers and all that stuff to get into the party, and they probably caught it there, I imagine. And then, it doesn't even make any sense, really. Because the guy that got it didn't go into the city. I'm fairly sure. You know what happened? Probably guy that got it was roommating with one of the guys that went in the city, and he had it. He just didn't feel any symptoms, and then he passed it to the guy that had symptoms, and then he felt sick, and he was the first one we found out that had COVID. That's why it was just weird. It was just weird. People that absolutely should have had it didn't have it. Like, I think there were people that were actually feeling sick that tested negative, which was very weird, and people that felt perfectly fine that tested positive. And then there was this whole funny thing where like, was it me that said something? I think someone told me something, and then I was telling other people that, like, if you put like honey up your nose, they can't they can't they can't register it as positive, some sort of a thing like that. And then people were like trying to go and buy honey at the store and stuff, and people were trying to make sure that they didn't get tested positive. They were doing everything in their power, obviously rightfully so. We paid to be there, right? We don't want to have our trial cut short because we've tested positive, especially especially if we don't feel sick. So I don't know if that actually works, but I heard it from someone, and then it became this big little meme as well. That's like that everyone was like kind of asking me about it, and I'm like, well, if you find honey, sure, but I mean, if you're not sick, you should be fine. But then again, it didn't work out that way. The people that were perfectly fine tested positive. Like, there are people that didn't go out. Like, there are people that didn't really leave their room, didn't really socialize, definitely didn't go out to the city and party, that tested positive. The only reason that would have happened is because someone around them went out and got it but didn't feel the symptoms, and then passed it to people who did feel the symptoms. And that's how we ended up finding out about it. So there are plenty of different jokes and banter within us that were made about where it actually came from. But the point is, we saw it on, like, people had it that we didn't even realize had it. And then the whole situation with the guy fainting, going to the hospital. But at the end of the day, they were all fine. Like, a few days later, they were better. The people that were also positive tested negative. And then, inevitably, I got sick as well after the fact. After the tests were over, after everyone said the COVID outbreak was done and no one was positive anymore, I then picked up the sickness. So I got lucky because perhaps of just the timing of it. It took a day or two after I shook everyone's hands and I inevitably got it passed on to me. It maybe took a couple days for it to set in. So the test, I got lucky in the fact that the test said that it was negative, but in reality, I probably did have it near the end. So that was the story of what happened on my last professional trial, the COVID trial, as we have kind of memed and called it. But it was a fun experience nonetheless, and it didn't really take away from the good memories we had. It only brought us as a group even closer together. So there's that to that. Even if it was a funny thing and it was like a crazy thing that it's like real, like no one would have really ever thought that would have been a thing that happened. Like, that wasn't on any of our bingo cards for that trial and for that whole experience. But lo and behold, the world's a beautiful place, and sometimes things like that do happen. And it was definitely an experience. It was a really fun experience. But as I said before, it brought us closer together, and I look back on it with a level of fondness and, a bit of just, I laugh. More than I regret it, I laugh at the fact that I was over here being like, oh, I'll shake everyone's hands. And I made it a thing that I'd shake everyone's hands, and then I got it, right? I mean, like, I was basically asking for it. Even if my sickness wasn't that bad and I was still able to play because, I had just avoided the cutoff and I avoided the tests, it was still a very dumb thing to do. But I look at it from the funny perspective rather than the regret perspective. Because I think all in all, it's these types of experiences that make our lives truly, like, wonderful, truly amazing. Things that, like, are kind of unexpected that happen and that throw a wrench in the works and throw a wrench in our plans, and it's a good thing. I think it was a fun thing. It was a fun story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you had a couple of laughs. And like, believe me, this actually happened. Like, this isn't this isn't me just making some stuff up. Obviously, why would I? But this stuff actually happened, and it was a funny moment. Hopefully, this next trial that I'm going on is not gonna be like that. It's gonna be a lot more clean. There's not gonna be sicknesses. It's just gonna be we go and we we try our best to make it. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening in on this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe on YouTube and follow on Spotify if you did, and leave a like, show your support. I appreciate you if you're still here watching this video. So, I wrap this up. It's time to wrap up. It's time to let you guys go. Thank you for watching this episode of the 365 podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next episode.